to Spotlight here on Hope TV, where you look and live. And on Spotlight, we are always doing our very best to bring to you persons who are impacting the community in the direction of light. And sometimes those people are seniors, sometimes they are middle-aged, and sometimes they are, yes, Gen Zs and millennials. And on this edition of Spotlight, we are so glad to have exactly that generation that is driving the systems right now. And that is something that we will be talking about. And our discussion is the vision of the new generation. Are we hearing? That's the question. Are we hearing? And from the events of the last few days, including today, I mean, the nation is in a place where of mixed feelings, because we just don't know whether the new generation is really being heard, and what would really evidence that they have been heard. Now, the vision for a new generation, we are happy to be joined on this edition of Spotlight by Henry Kianduma. Henry Kianduma is a student of theology at St. Paul's University. Welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you so much.
And we hope to just hear what you are feeling about Occupy the Church. You know?
Occupy the Church, all right.
Whether you are one to be occupied or one who is occupying, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you.
And we are also happy to have with us Anne Muturi, who is a youth leader, a youth champion, a youth advocate. Everything youth, she says, we are here and we must be here. Again, Anne, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you very much.
And as always, viewers, you are welcome to be part of this program. Do engage us on the social media platforms and also on the WhatsApp number provided there as we talk about the vision for the new generation. Now, let me begin with a place that is what you can call a respectable place. A tweet from a respectable man who is Honorable Kifutha Kibwana. And he was responding to the appointments, the cabinet. And Kenyans have really responded to it in very mixed ways. But you can almost tell that most of the country is really confused.
Yeah.
They are neither happy nor sad, they're just there.
Yeah.
You know? Now listen to what Kifutha Kibwana said a few hours ago. He says, Raila, you are no longer Baba. The Gen Z millennial movement is now the official opposition.
Yeah.
Now you are in your fourth. Moi, Kibaki, Uhuru, and Ruto, handshake, shake. Always hid in plain sight. And then something very striking. May the blood and tears of the young haunt you all your life. Now, Kifutha Kibwana is not a man to be that acute, especially in the last line there. But you can tell it's coming from deep within him. The expectations that he had that have really been disappointed.
Yeah.
Now, let's go right there about the new cabinet. And let's start with you, Anne. Your feelings.
So let me go a bit back when the cabinet was all, what do you call it?
The set.
When, they were all removed from their seats.
Okay.
And for me, I felt hopeful. It was like, wow, finally, something is being done, our voices are being heard, and this is change that's happening. And then slowly he releases the names of the first few, the 11 nominees, and a lot of the names are similar, familiar names that we saw previously. And then after that, today happens. I think for me, I was just in shock. It was like, wow, he actually did it. It's you know, those things, we were having discussions about it and people are like, oh, you know, don't rejoice yet about the cabinet being what do you call
dismissed.
it? Dismissed,
Yeah.
Let's not rejoice yet until we see the appointment. But I was like, no, let's give him credit where it's due, you know? Let's be hopeful that this is a new era that's happening, or then this happens. So I feel speechless, and it's like we take one step forward, then we take 5 back.
Yeah, backwards.
Yeah.
Henry?
Yeah, I think it's very disappointing seeing that, he recycled, and more to that, getting the opposition people into the cabinet, into the government, and you see opposition has its place in a country, and there's what they're supposed to do. Not getting them in, that is buying them. And after they were dismissed, some people started tweeting and writing on Facebook, now Gen Zs, you can go home, your thing has been sorted. But they thought we would buy that, but we can't buy that. So it's very disappointing that, okay, literally they've changed nothing per se. Yeah.
So speechless, disappointed.
Yeah, disappointed.
And just now, again, going to what the expectations would have been. What would you have expected?
I would have expected, I think initially we really talked about how these CSs should be people, not politicians, people who are experts in their field to come up. So I would say have a measure, or I think the president should be well informed about these are people who are respectable in their fields with expertise, and have a list of nominees or have a list of CSs that we can say these are people we respect and we know we'll be able to hold him accountable and there'll be a new change. At least that was my expectation. It is names that we've seen and that we know and acknowledge.
Talk about competence, because Gen Z is talking about competent people. We don't care where you come from as long as you're competent. You see, we've had this politics of tribes that this is our own, this is Kikuyu, this is Luo, but we don't want that. We just want competent people and people who can admit to their mistakes, their weaknesses, and people who can say, I can't do this. One of the cabinet secretaries said that she can't occupy a certain position, and that was, she was sending a message that I don't want to go to a certain position that I won't deliver. And that is what people are looking for, people who are competent. If you're not competent, we don't want that. Now bringing in politicians who've been there for years, who have cases in court, that is an insult. I would think.
Insult. Strong feelings there. But I'm also, one of the lines that is being pushed back is that the president invited the young people to discourse. He showed up in the X space, and he said himself that, you guys just didn't show up. Did you show up or did you run away? No. Something like that. So anyway, that you people are faceless, you're leaderless. How do you expect to be considered when you are taking that kind of mode? So there's a pushback there.
But I think our requests are very public. It's not, first of all, we said, all the requests that we put out are very public and out there. So our pushback was because we've already said our requests. Why then do you need to have a sit down? And from past experiences, people tend to have a sit back and then, a sit down with them and nothing ends up resulting. There are no fruits. It's why I think one of the most powerful things has been us being faceless is there is no one to bribe, there's no one to shut down. Because now everyone is speaking the same message. So people did speak. It's just that he's refusing to listen. He wants us to listen in his own way, not what we are actually saying. That's what I think.
And when you say leaderless and faceless, can you explain that a little bit? It's kind of going past many heads.
I would think we are trying to run away from a trap. Okay, let me just unmask it. We're trying to run away from a trap, because if you say Anne is our leader and then she goes to State House and she gets 2 million, she'll come and speak to us, you guys, let's go back home.
Let's understand.
And we can't fall. And we can't fall for it. We can't fall for it, and that is why he's saying, oh, you guys didn't show up, want to talk to your leaders. There's no leader there. And it's on the table what people want, and everybody knows that. Even the cabinet secretaries, the MPs, everybody knows that. But we can't fall for there's a leader, you can speak to us. We are not sending someone there. But unless he's willing to meet all of us, which is not even possible.
Just to add, I think previously the opposition party has always had a face. So that is what we don't have. That's the difference between, that's why we say we are leaderless, we are tribeless, because we don't have it's not a one-man show. It's not one person who's saying, let's do this, and everyone does. Everyone is feeling the pain, everyone is feeling the heart and the bitterness, and everyone is speaking. So it ends up being one voice, but from very many people.
And having a leader has not worked, because previously, Baba, as we mentioned in the beginning, he would call the shots. Let's go. And everybody goes, let's go home. And everybody goes home. Now we have nobody like that to us, let's go back home. Because we've seen the history, and that is why Kivuda is saying that we've seen the history. People go to the streets and then some discussion somewhere, and then everybody else is ushered back home, and nothing changes.
All right, let's talk about integrity, because I think that's something that has been pushed a lot. It's not that we ourselves are perfect, but we want leaders who are at least on the path of perfection. What if we were looking for leaders, because it's not just CSAs, I'm sure it's members of parliament.
Members of parliament.
All those, the chain of public leaders, of leaders with integrity. Now, Henry, integrity is a journey. You cannot, even for St. Paul's, even Paul, Paul was converted in a moment. It took years for him to really be able to stand to be the Paul, the converted, the one who would now lead others. Now, how would you expect the government, let me talk about specifically, because at this point it's at the president's desk. How would you expect him to pick out people of integrity? Because sometimes it's being seen as such a high ideal that it's not practical.
People say that a good apology is a changed behavior, and if you start improving, Gen Zs will recognize that we are improving, we are changing, we are listening, and that has not happened. So when the president himself is not setting a good example, he says don't give money in church, and then the next Sunday he does that, and then he says I'm dismissing everyone, and then he calls them back, the exact people. Then we see he's not changing. If we are talking about integrity, we know people, maybe even influencers on Facebook, on Twitter, people who are competent and people who have a good track record. Why not call them and maybe even ask for public participation, or ask for the parliament? Maybe, okay, right now we don't trust the parliament. I'm very disappointed with the parliament. But again, we can see him getting new people, and people with a good track record, and people who've done good things for the society. Such people. But if you're calling them back, then we can't trust him anymore. I remember during the interview when one of those people who were interviewing him told him that Kenyans can't listen to you anymore, because the moment you start, even before you start speaking, everybody thinks that you're lying. So losing trust at that point, I would think it would be very hard for us to trust him again. But again, as I said, a good apology is a changed behavior. So if we start getting good people and people who can represent people well. Gen Z said one thing: we want Matiang'i, and Matiang'i had hurt Gen Zs because they feel that they are KCSE, but at least they saw competent in him. They saw him do his work. And at the end of the day, they were like, we love this man. He did his work well. Somebody like that.
So it's a Matiang'i type.
Matiang'i type. Yeah,
because I heard that they don't want him, but they want his type.
His type.
And there's a language, there's a way, as you say, avoiding a certain trap. Is that new way of doing things? This thing of it's like, I don't know what to call that, tact, because there's a trap you can see that you don't want to get into. What's that tact now? Because previously to be like, nominate 3-4 of you, let them get to these high positions, and you're happy. But now you seem to, no, we don't want that. That's going to kill us. Explain that.
No, I think we're just looking at the past. I think someone wise said, a fool is someone who does the same thing twice expecting different results. We have seen really many track records of people. There was an incident of how one of the youth went and spoke, but then they spoke something that was very out of turn and not what represented everyone. And the backlash was really bad. But having such examples makes us say, no, let's not have specific young individuals who have just appeared right now. We haven't necessarily seen what they've done or they don't have a track record. I would say there's a certain task force that the president tried putting into place, but then it was unconstitutional. I think some of the members in that task force are people we can actually commend, like people we have seen the work they've done and the various things they've done. So I would say the president actually has a list of these people, and he knows people who are commendable. I just don't know why he's not putting them in place.
And that's a very important question, and I'll bring it again to you, Henry. Why is it that the president has these people? They're there, they're Kenyans, some of whom have already a record of integrity and competence.
Yeah.
Why is it that, according to your thinking now, why would it be that they are not getting to where the people want them to get?
I think the president is using the old tactics of, maybe I would say the colonial tactics. Me, for example, I'm from Nyeri, I'm Kikuyu, and so I say, okay, simply because we have the deputy president, he's from Nyeri, he's a Kikuyu, I'm fine with that. It doesn't matter what he does, but simply because he's there, I'm happy. But that is what Gen Zs are rejecting. Why wouldn't he get competent people? We don't care from where they come from, maybe from Mombasa, from EC, from anywhere. We want competent people. But these people will question him. And that is what Gen Zs are doing. The bad thing that Gen Zs have done is to ask questions. And the generation that is there is not ready to receive questions. And they will say that we never asked questions to our parents. So how dare you ask questions? But we'll ask questions.
Yeah.
So that is why he's not getting them in.
Yeah, let me just write on that. Never asked questions, our parents' questions.
Yeah.
And one of the names or titles that is thrown about, our children, our daughters,
Sons and
our
daughters.
sons.
Yeah.
Stop this.
Stop this.
We got it. We've heard you. Now, the terminology, sons, daughters, children, and sometimes kids, how does it sit with you?
I think in one way it is like a familiar word to show there's some sort of relationship that's happening and to also give the authority that comes
Yeah,
with
to impose
parents.
authority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think on the other hand, even with the authority, for us it also comes off as, you see, when you call us children, sometimes you're not regarding us as adults. You're looking at us as you are not in a position to think and make decisions like an adult.
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge. One, they would call us sons and daughters, but how they receive us and how they receive us talking and sharing our opinions it's not in a like respectable way. It is like, you guys are children, remain in your place as children. Yeah, don't argue with when the adults are talking, don't argue.
We might not know where to draw the line when you are belittling us or when you're showing affection. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So does it, if, for instance, the deputy president says, our children, our sons, these are our sons, these are our daughters. Or Lesser Pitt gives Bishop, Archbishop, gives an example. My son was doing this and joined his friends.
Yeah.
So a language that is, as you say, kind of taming kind of language or showing a relationship.
Yeah.
But when you hear our children, Henry, do you feel like I'm not? Or do you feel like, where did that come from? What do you feel?
Okay, there are mixed feelings because sometimes when you say my child, I would think as your child, you have to listen to me because you love me, you respect me, and you want a better future for me. But again, when you say our children are going to KFC and coming to town with Uber, I feel very much insulted. But of course, we can do that because we don't, we are living in a different generation. This is not the time of screaming or sending smoke signals. We have phone calls. So we can come to Maandamano with Uber. So sometimes we feel insulted.
Yeah, just maybe to engage that a little bit because it's used a lot, and it's used intentionally to either show shock, or show you should not be doing that, or show that you should listen. Because it's used as a very craftily, and so I'm just wondering whether. Again, back to Henry, do you feel like that is used as a weapon?
Yeah.
A control weapon?
Yeah, I think they're using it as a weapon, maybe to get us back home, and to remember that we are being provided for, and to know that we can be kicked out. You're still a child. So, I think they're using it as a weapon to, by the way, they are my seniors, let me just stop this. Yeah, it's kind of a weapon.
You're kind of not in your zone.
Yeah.
Stepping.
Yeah, you belong there.
Yeah, I will handle it. You wait.
Yeah.
I've heard you.
Yeah, but what they're forgetting is that previously I was there during 2010 Constitution, and they gave us booklets of the proposed Constitution, and people never used to read. But Gen Zs decided to read the finance bill. And as if that was not enough, they decided to translate it even to mother tongue. They would do TikToks in Kikuyu, in Kiluya, in all those languages. So at the end of the day, they knew what we had in here. Unlike the previous generation that never even perused those pages. They would just get it and then they say, this is the government, they're the wise people, and we go on,
and I think something that is not discussed a lot, the way the young people are pushed back quickly, and they're dismissed easily. And I have heard respectable leaders say, give up, Gen Zs, it's now over. As if to say that all this was either fake or to feel, or even you can sense some sense of envy. That how did you get here? You know, the sooner it ends, the better, the sooner we resume our regular life and we take charge. You know, you can almost sense some envy. Instead of hearing support, you hear envy. And sometimes even jealousy. Just, how do you read that?
Well, I think for me, I've seen most of the other side, where people, I was having a conversation the other day, and people the parents were just now realizing that, you know, we are honestly feeling suppressed. We are overpaying taxes, but we have become so used to not saying anything about it, and it's the norm. So now when Gen Z stood up and talked, they were like, it's like a new reality. It's like, we can actually do this. Like, this is happening. So for me, most of what I've had is congratulations, and you guys are doing well, and this is things we cannot say, so thank you for saying it for us. I don't think I've had the other side of it as much.
This envy, okay, it's quite striking how the conversation changed from watoto to like mimi ni mama Gen Z. You see, that is how they're introducing themselves, and even you will hear an old person saying, when I was a Gen Z, you were never a Gen Z. Come on. When I was a Gen Z, I used to do this. When we were Gen Zs, they were never Gen Zs. But there's that envy, and you can feel it, and you can see it, because they never thought that we would move anything. When they talked about KFC, when they talked about iPhones, they thought this was a drama which will end tomorrow. But these guys were relentless. They were not going back home.
Yeah, and I think perhaps I think the whole Gen Z story started even before the politics side of it. But even in the corporate field, we'd hear Gen Z would be very picky and choosy about the kinds of jobs that would be. You know, they'd be like, this is not part of my JD, I'm done. So I think conversations with JDs and just talking about how these people are, you know, they don't follow rules, they are very, you know, rude, disrespectful. Started a long time ago. So by the time this is happening, they were just like, we are so used to them doing this, so it is something that will come and go. So probably also that's been a factor. You know,
and what I'm hearing, and you can comment on it, is that this questioning is not ending. It is a way. It's a new way. Get used to it.
Get used to it.
And this questioning is not soft. It is not with, you know, knees on the ground. It is like eyeball to eyeball. Like, it is normal. So future generations or past generations get used to this questioning mode. Be ready for them. Is that what we would read?
Because we were having a conversation sometime, and somebody asked me, when will you stop? At what point will you stop? So we get the cabinet home, you don't stop. We do this, we don't stop. What do you want us to do? To demolish the buildings, the state house, everything? But I think they are not getting the point. The questioning is very necessary, especially because we are using public funds, people who are paying taxes, and it's our taxes. So the questioning is not ending. I think what I foresee is that we will birth a whole new generation that will be very accountable, that people will fear occupying those spaces. You tell someone, I want you to be the president, and they say no, because they are not ready to answer the questions. But I don't think this will change. Because I have little cousins who who are very passionate about what is happening. And they're like, I wish we were not in school. We would have joined you to the streets. And we even see small street kids, in the streets and all that. So I don't think it will stop.
Okay.
It might not stop.
Just before we go to Occupy the Church, because we need to talk about that in a bit, let's talk about the intergenerational component. Because there is some people perceiving this as we and they. Like we are, like as if the young people would monopolize this movement. And the people of other generations now come, like with more dominating, like I've been there, done that, I'm this, I'm established, trying to also like show they have something. So it's like two tribes, two communities, the modern community and maybe the senior community. And can you speak to the intergenerational aspect to this movement and to the new country that you envision?
I think for the longest time, this new generation, now Generation Z, is distinctly different from the other generation. I think a lot of it has to do with how we've been brought up, the environments, our exposure to media, just even our studies and all that we've been doing. And I think there is a way in which you can work together, but then it takes a lot. I think over this period of time, we have been seeing a bit more support or appreciation from the older generation, of the younger generation, and their input and their curiosity about what's happening in politics and what's happening in our generation, which has been good. My hope is that, I don't know, in a couple of years, we'll get more integration where the youth are willing to sit down under the authority and wisdom of older people, because there's a lot they've learned that we're yet to learn. But then at the same time, the older generation are ready to sit and listen and welcome the youth into this particular space. So that's my hope for the future.
Yeah, let me speak from where I sit. Let me ask for people who are not Gen Zs and they're not millennials. Let me speak from that. And what qualities do I, because I really want to be part of what's going on. I actually resonate with what's going on. And I feel like, when I was on Gen Z, something like that. But I really resonate with that. What qualities do I need to develop, Henry? Or what values do I need to develop for you to feel like I'm now an ally?
Okay.
Or I am walking alongside you.
Yeah.
And not as a mentor, but actually as a core, as a partner. So there's no distance of I'm larger, you're not, like we're working together. What qualities do I need to develop?
I think maybe I can mention two. One is listening, and two is reasoning together. Yeah, you can just reason together. Say, okay, someone who is younger than you can tell you something, and you are able to listen to them attentively, not in a mocking way, and then you reason together. What do you think? What should we do? The moment you do that, you're able to penetrate inside Gen Z. What do you want us to do? And they tell you, and you appreciate what they say, and if you see they're wrong, you tell them in a polite way, I don't think that's right. And they'll listen to you. But the moment you try to say they can't tell you anything, they don't know anything, no, you're blocked.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, sorry, just to add, I'd say a lot of patience as well.
Yeah, sure.
Humility, especially because it's different. I think for the longest time, you people are young. So now just coming to this space of saying, okay, being willing to listen takes a lot of humility, I would say. And open-mindedness that maybe the way we've been doing things, there are newer and different ways of doing it.
Yeah, and we're better.
Yeah, and better ways, and willing to adopt, not just to say you listen, but back it up with action.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think the word that has gone around quite a bit is authenticity.
Authentic. Yeah.
Now, this could be a bit. You can say, and have you been to the demonstrations? Have you?
Yes, I was.
Oh, you've been. Oh,
no.
Whoa. That's I mean it's quite something.
Yes.
And let me ask, and how have you been participating in this?
I've not been actively on the streets, but I know I encouraged people. Okay, some people look upon me like the spiritual leader, which I don't think it's my place. But they called me and told me, Henry, we are here. We are three of us, and do you think we should go to the streets? Oh yes, go. And they said that is all we wanted to hear. They were coming from Kamboi area, and they went to the streets the following morning.
Yeah.
And where I preached some other day, last Sunday but one, I encouraged them to join, simply because I was not able. I would have wanted.
You are an active recruiter.
Yeah, I'm an active recruiter.
And now, what is happening now is that when we started out with this, it was kind of cool. There was the real iPhone thing. There was the real KFC thing.
Yeah.
Like in terms of cool, it looks. But the coolness of this was in its safety.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
In its safety.
Yeah.
But now it's shifted.
Yeah.
And now it's goony.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and that. How does that play out now, Henry?
The reason as to why Gen Zs are not backing up, are not going back home, and they're not impressed and they're not stopping this, is because we saw the active recruitment of these goons into the movement. And you could see, I saw someone tweet saying that they saw them move out of City Hall and joined them. So you see the first movement, you would see people walking with their phones in streets of Nairobi, holding your phone like this, and nobody would snatch you. You would find someone selling smokies, and they would not steal from them. In fact, they would buy smokies, and then this person would say, let me join you. But over time, you
sold all their smokies.
You've done your job, and now let's join you. But then over time, the government employed that thing of inviting goons in, and it has been happening. Even the times of Moi, the times of all those people, they've been employing these people. So they wanted to make it look bad, but Gen Zs were very bright to see it, and they would capture it in camera, and thanks to the media, they would show that, and that makes it even more worse. Let's
now, that street courage, the courage to be in the street, it's a risk in every way. But this, the young people still show up, and you've been there, Now let's come to the sanctuary, because the Occupy Church was very active at some point, like about maybe 3 weeks ago. But some of that has now died down. I was, for the first time, I've never seen a situation whereby a preacher is in the pulpit and a young man walks to the Kenyan flag from all behind there and just shouting some patriotic things until the preacher had to kind of accommodate what he's saying. That was very new, right? I wouldn't say it was disruptive. I would say it was new, right? But Occupy the Church. And what's that? Just tell us. What's that?
I think it started from when the protests began, the church was silent. At least we felt like it wasn't as loud as we would have wanted it to be. So then, because of that, then we were like, now the youth then came in and said, then now let's go to church, because these are the very same people who really pushed for the current government to come into place. And then now when things have changed and things are not going well, you're sitting silent and doing nothing about it. So the question is, what are you trying to say? Are you saying that what is going on is okay for you to go on? Then that's when Occupy Church came. And I would say since then, and even before, like in the church I go to, even how we ended up going for the protest, there was a lot of support. There was a lot of them talking about it, but doing it in the right way, not just doing protests, breaking laws and what we come in from. We are doing this as Christians because it is our civic duty, and we're not going to stay silent when injustices are happening. So we'll take a stand on it. The very same way, even when we're doing elections, we'd speak very publicly about go and do your civic duty. Even now, during this time when there are so many injustices happening, what is our say? Are we now staying silent? And we have seen very many churches come, change the narrative and come and speak about it, do a lot of sensitization of what is happening in the country, what kind of bills are being passed, and having public sessions where people come in and share and get to know what's happening, which I think has been good. So Occupy Church started from the church being silent, and I think why it has also toned down as we go is because the church has now stopped being silent.
And that's like maybe the external aspect. The church is now more intentional about voicing mostly in support of what's going on.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the church itself.
Okay.
Because when the Occupy Church voice came, there was pastors are taking in money from politicians. Our pastors are not walking the talk. They have the altar is no longer a place where that is holy. The politicians are coming and taking it over. And so Occupy the Church was like, I mean, we want the church to go back to be that holy place. The internal aspect. Can you speak to that? Where the church needs to actually be occupied?
All right. The church was silent. That was the first bit of the church, and Gen Zs were like, speak, we want to hear you. We've read the history of Timothy Njoya, of David Gitari and Okulu. We want you to speak. And now the second part that you're talking about, I would call it consecrate the church once again, because it's in the church where these people are sanitizing themselves. So this person will root 100,000 and then bring 100,000 to the church, and then looks at the choir nimewanunulia uniform 100,000, and then we clap, and we will never be able to question this person. So slowly by slowly, they stole or they took the moral authority of the church, and the church could not speak. And so Gen Z said, we are occupying the churches, and we will sit strategically, and if a politician gets a mic or the pulpit, we kick him out. In a way that was consecrating the church and making it a holy place once again. And we saw many politicians stopped going to church, because you would see a politician, you follow them on Twitter, and politician will go to 4 churches on a Sunday, on one Sunday, and then he gives money, and somehow the church was being used by the politician. Now the institutional church was being used by the politicians to sanitize themselves and to buy people and to lie to people. And as Anne was saying, the church pushed this government in. And for the longest time, the church has enjoyed this freedom of telling people something and nobody questions. But now we are like, but you told us, this is heaven. We are going to heaven. Where is heaven now? We are in hell already. So we are trying to, so Gen Zs were doing the work of Christ to sanitize to consecrate the church.
You know, I'm alert that you are speaking in past tense. They were doing. Because since then,
it has gone down.
The street protests have become more, but the church, going to the church and just stopping that political activity has kind of really died down.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, it has died down. But before we get to how to revive it, what are some areas, if you were to change, because the politician is still a visitor. By the time he comes to the church and meets an accepting, a receiving, a subordinating priest, a lot has happened to the priesthood long before
he shows up.
So what are some things that you feel, if you were to reform the church, some particular things you would say, I would remove this, I would reinstate this, I would begin this,
Wow, that's a good question. I don't know if I've really thought.
And use your the street mind. We want to hear the street person. The one who is carrying banners, and the one who is shouting, and be candid.
Some of the things I would change. Let me think. Okay, I think the first thing that I go to is really the way money is being spent in our church. I think that's one thing I see a lot of. Having serious accountability. There are places in which we don't necessarily get to see what happens here and why this money is being spent here and not in other places. One would be the area of money. Two, this would sound very controversial. I think probably the way they choose the elders in the church, because in the church we have the session as a governing body.
Yeah, how they choose us.
Yeah, how they choose elders. I think them being the governing body, how the decisions are made in the church comes from them, and I think it would go back to them. Honestly, I would ask, do they have a personal relationship with God? Yeah. How does that actively look like in their day-to-day lives? I think those are some of the things that I can think of off the top of my
So
head.
more transparency.
More transparency.
And then in terms of recruiting high leadership,
Yes.
Yeah.
would you say that, let me bring the generational aspect here. Would you think that it's good for younger people to be present in high leadership?
100%, 100%. Because even true, I completely know the wealth that is there in age and in having a lot of experience, and that's why probably we have. But then we have older people in those places. But if I think a lot of what they've been saying is that the future of the church is in the youth, but the youth themselves are not represented in these spaces
Yeah.
where decisions are being made.
Yeah, sure.
There's a huge gap there. So I would say definitely having a youth representatives or these youth being put in such such offices.
Okay.
Yes. And where their voice is actually heard, not just being put there for the sake of just having a youth, but their voice is being heard.
Okay. Let me just spin that a little bit, Henry, and ask, as a young person, when you go to church, what do you expect? What do you expect church to be like? What do you expect to experience? What would make you say, today
I was
at church?
Yeah, I was in church. I expect to find what I don't see outside here. I would expect to find a fellowship of believers who are singing, who are praying, who are reading the Bible, and who you feel like you are in communion with heaven. But sometimes we are almost having communion with heavens, and then someone comes in between and spoils everything. So if I was asked to reform something, I would reform the liturgy of the church. That nowhere will a politician stand and speak to the congregation. I see it in the UK that the Queen, Elizabeth, who is the head of the Church of England, now we have a king, will go to church, listen to everything, and then walk out. And she won't stand there. But in Kenya, we entertain them to throw insults and all that inside the church, and nobody cares. The pastors are enjoying and they are laughing at the back. And if you could go and maybe Google the pictures of politicians speaking, all of them, the background is pastors. Unfortunately, because they're always speaking in church. I would reform that, because we never get what we expected in church. When COVID came, we got the online churches. And the good thing with online churches is that you can choose where you want to worship. So you listen to prayers here, and then listen to songs here, and then look for your best, maybe your favorite preacher, and listen to them, and then you're good. You're sorted. That is what Gen Zs are doing. And when they were bringing a conversation about rejecting church because it came and then it died, that is what they were speaking about. Rejecting maybe church services. And also when she talked about accountability and finances, a Gen Z will think that it's more good to give a street child 50 bob than giving it in church. And that is what we do all the time. And that is why you see these young street kids. And I would challenge our viewers, you just walk to the streets of Nairobi. When they see a young person, they run to them, uncle, uncle, auntie, auntie, because they know they'll give them something. Yeah, because maybe the previous generation thought it's good to tithe in church and not to give the street children. And I think Jesus Christ would do the opposite. Yeah, he would go to the street child.
Yeah. That's like the church, the institutional church as it is, liturgical and all. But you've mentioned something else about, the soft virtual church. Being here, and being there. I do remember not a long time ago having a couple who wanted to get married, and I asked one of them, so where do you go to church? He said the pastor. So where is the church located? It's virtual. So and which made me again a little lost, because usually what we would ask is, please give us a letter from your pastor. But no, I mean, I can't, unless I send a message, No, but about what does church membership, or what does church community, like a vibrant, true church faith community, look like for the young person?
I would say something that is important is people who stand on one thing and don't move depending on circumstances. Like if we are preaching in church, let the sermon be sound. It's not like today we'll hear one thing, tomorrow we'll hear another thing. For me, community is also really accountability. A community where I'll feel safe to share, and also will be held accountable according to the standard that we live to, which is the Word of God. So that part of fellowship, I think, is what will keep drawing people physically to church outside the online environment.
And quality. When she speaks about sound sermons, Gen Zs will ask you, you said this and this and this, I didn't get this part. And they love quality. That is why most of the times they'll choose the online church, because they know where to find quality. It doesn't sit good with them to come and waste 2 hours in church and they go home with nothing.
Okay. Just finally, also, and your views here are very important, because they are benefiting a lot of church leaders who are watching right now. You are known as a generation that, it's interesting because you are talking about, when we talk about occupy the church, they didn't talk about shut down the church. They talk about reform the church, adjust the church, meaning that there is an appreciation for the church. And so there is a certain traditional way or classic aspect to the Gen Z person, to the millennial person, but also there's the technology part, and allow me to use the word innovative part. There's the innovation aspect, and I'd want you to just maybe each one of you take a turn to say, how does innovation look like in the church? What are the areas in which you feel innovation can really be helpful to bring church alive to the current generation?
Okay. One thing that the church should do is to embrace technology. There is no innovation in this age without technology. Unfortunately, the church leadership is made up of very old people. Okay, yeah, that's a very bad statement, but it's the truth. And they don't want to engage the young people. She said about getting young people into spaces of decision making and influence in church, not to be there to sugarcoat, okay, not even to sugarcoat, to be like, to just be there to be seen. I've been taught something by Dr. Nyabura Joroge, who is a feminist, and she tells me, if you're in a space that is talking about inclusivity, gender inclusivity, and a woman comes on board, she's not there to pray for tea. She waits for the meeting 3 hours and then she's told, Mama Nani, pray for tea. No, she's there to make decisions. So they need to get young people, not sycophants, young people who will challenge them. And by the way the young person is challenging them, then they learn to listen and then to be innovative, because the young people have seen a lot and they are up to par with the technology. So they embrace technology and work on it.
All right. I like what you say. Young people have seen a lot.
Yeah, they've seen a lot. They're just silent.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of brings a very, the old person will say, or the senior person will say, I've seen a lot. You'll also say, I've also seen a whole lot. You know, and innovation and the church.
I want to say also, be open to new ways of doing service, of doing things that have happened for years and years. Like what she was talking about, liturgy in church. I think I really appreciate my church. How we do the youth service is very different from how the main service do their thing. That's because like the youth has been given room to innovate, to work around things. We still have, the key important things that are supposed to be there in the service, the sermon, the worship, that is done, but done in a different way. So being open to even changing things that have probably been set in stone since probably the church began. That would be an innovative and new way. And also exploring the media and social media space and finding avenues in which to reach the youth wherever they are and reach them, especially through social media.
Okay, great.
Yes.
That's a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
It's the kind of conversations you want to go on, and very brilliant perspectives as well. And I feel like I really want to walk alongside you. Thank you so much, Henry, for your views here on Spotlight. And thank you, Anne, also for just your vibrant participation. And we really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And keep doing what you're doing, because you're not just young people who are ambitious or who are just looking to rock the culture. You are prophets. You are prophets. And we better listen to what the prophets are saying.
Yeah.
Viewers, this has been Spotlight, and a lot we have gleaned from Henry and also from Anne, representing a whole generation. And lots of things. But let me just say too, one, that the questioning culture is not dying. It's about to get sharper. So all of us get used to it. In other words, be ready with the answers. Even better, maybe, when you're doing a task, be ready to explain every detail around it openly. That could be better. And the second thing is that faith is cross-generational. The Bible does talk about from generation to generation. And yes, our young people could be the way they are, could be very different, but they still desire an authentic faith because God is the Ancient of Days. This has been Spotlight. Thank you for watching.